So, now what I want to say is that in order to appreciate dream more, and I hope ultimately to appreciate the arts more, to think about some ordinary situations for us and how, in fact, our lives are related to art and to dream. So in everyday life, we use words that have memory, intentions, and layers of meaning that are not expressed. Isn't this right? That we say things all the time. We make statements that, they may be statements that we make or language we use that come from our parents, that come from something we've seen in the movies or on television or in a magazine. The words, there's so much underneath our words. There's, in Jungian language, I guess you'd say there's an unconscious to our language. Isn't that true? If you were to talk to somebody, hear one sentence and then say, okay, where does that word come from? Well, I use that word because I was brought up this way. We use words like that kind of thing. So we could see that there's an unconscious, there's memory. There may even be intentions in our language. You may want to use certain words because you know it'll really get someone boiling, to use that word. Or you might make someone laugh, or it might make someone relax because of the language you're using. So there is that intention even that is underneath the unconscious of the word. Now imagine that here we are going along in our day-to-day life, and we go to sleep at night. What a strange thing to do. We go to sleep. I've often thought it's such a strange thing to sleep. So everyone lies down these platforms and they close their eyes, and for 8 hours or so, 8 hours out of a busy day, they close their eyes and just lie there. What a strange practice that is. So, but think of that in terms of what I'm saying here, that just as our speech has its unconscious, you might say our day has its unconscious. Our day has its other place, where the soul gets refreshed by going away from actuality and the body. So we're not really sleeping. We're incubating, you might say. That's the term that the Greeks used for the temple of Asclepios, where you went to be healed. If you were really sick, you went and you slept at the temple. And hopefully you dreamed. You had a dream. So they could see there's some healing in that process of dreaming. Now, we might say because it refreshes or something, or I don't know what we'd say about it, but their view is that the soul then gets to be on its own. And it goes into these places. And you know what that's like when you have a dream? Doesn't it feel like you're right in those places? You're not looking at a movie screen, you're there. This is bigger than 3D, isn't it, a dream? You're really there, you're really in that place. One of the things that strikes me, I noticed it just the other day as I get older now, I have this habit of just sitting down and suddenly I go to sleep. And I notice that as I sleep, in a split second, I'm in another territory. I'm not in some vacant place. I'm not in a neutral place. I'm in another place. And it feels exactly like being in another space, in another place. So that's our dream, and it's right, the thing is, it's right there on the edge. It takes a split second to get there. Just doze off. You're not unconscious, that's a bad word for it. You are somewhere else. And yet if you look, your family looks at me and they say, he's there. But I'm not. I'm off somewhere else. And that's the teaching this is a very, very ancient teaching. That the soul moves and moves out of the body and goes somewhere for its benefit. Now, it's not always pleasant where you go. Sometimes it's very disturbing, but it's for the benefit of the soul. So it's not just leaving, it's going to a particular place. I would imagine that if we appreciated the arts more, see, it's hard to have arts in a society that is so science-dominated. It's really difficult because we don't know where the arts belong. Now, if we were in another society where we didn't explain everything scientifically, and we were more religious in a deep sense of the word, I don't mean just joining organization, but I mean really religious in the sense of being in touch with the mysteries and of life and understanding ritual and all that sort of thing, then the arts, first of all, we wouldn't be in a museum probably. They would be somewhere else. The images would be part of life. They would be in life somehow. And I think what we would do is we would encounter the image then more directly in the way we fall into dream. I think these things would be much closer to each other then. Okay, can we go ahead? I'm going to have to move a little faster here. Dreams are a way to deliteralize and make it a soul. So just as I said, the painter wants to deliteralize in some effective way, painting a blue face, doing something to deliteralize it, making something larger than life. There are lots of ways to deliteralize. Cubist deliteralizing, Impressionist deliteralizing. There are lots of ways to you want to do it somehow because you want to get out of the actual world. You want to invite, the artist, I would think, wants to take somebody. They're like Virgil taking Dante, being the one who helps enter, or rather really exit this world that we're in. And make it a soul, because that's where the soul is. You deliteralize, and you're suddenly in the realm of soul, where the soul has gone rather than in actual life. Okay, can we go a little further? Well, I've already said this. Without thinking, we want to treat a dream as something literal. We want to interpret it, transmute it into something we understand and can use. We want to remain in life and keep what belongs in the dream world in our day world. I think there's something about the difficulty in the modern life, we have trouble with dreams, is that we're reluctant to let go and enter the realm of the image. For one thing, that's considered crazy. Now, I can tell you, I'm a psychotherapist. I worked for 35 years as a therapist, especially in my early years. I worked with a lot of psychotic people. I mean, several psychotic people. And I remember one or two cases in particular where people are really dissociated. They really had a hard time getting on in life and seeing things and hallucinating and all that kind of thing. And from the very beginning, I felt it was really important to take these hallucinations seriously. And I did. This person would come to me very crazy, hardly able to get, I know how they even got to my place where I was working, get to me. And I would take their imagery very seriously, and I would talk to them seriously about their imagery. I would never give the impression that their imagery was inappropriate or crazy or unhealthy or whatever. I would take the images seriously. Now, sometimes they would react because they were taught that it's not good to have these images. But I would take them seriously. I believed that if we stayed close to those images, we would find a way through this thing that had got a hold of them. And I stayed with it. Even there were times that it was not easy. I mean, most of the time it was not easy, but there were times that I had to wonder, was this really okay? But I did it. I stuck with those things. And I felt, and still feel, that allowed a person then to return to their soul. That doesn't mean that they adjust really well. Because if everyone in this room suddenly became very soulful, we would not adjust anymore in our world as well as we do. We pay a price for that. But they were able to get along better, seemed to me. So I think there's a resistance to go into the realm of soul because it means letting go of life to some extent. It's not easy to do. I was once, when I was doing this work, I was teaching at a university, and students told me about a dream. More than one student had this dream. They would go into the library at the university, go to the elevator, press the up button, get on the elevator, and go down. I love that dream. They were taken down. They didn't want to go down, they wanted to go up. But the dream took them down. And that's what I'm trying to say to you. We want to go up a lot of times, where you can see things and have an overview. But there's something of the soul that takes us down. These are just some examples now of how words can have an undercurrent to them, an unconscious. Doctors think of a hospital, I'm saying doctors now because I work with them so much these days. Doctors think of a hospital as a place of technology and science. I'm telling you, I sat through several lectures in the past week by physicians, surgeons in particular, and showing us, with great concern, but showing us how much technology dominates hospital work. How much? I mean, one surgeon was describing to us that he had so much technology in the room that he couldn't see or touch the patient. So many machines all around the patient's bed, they couldn't even touch or even see who the patient was. That is their dream of that word, hospital. I look at it and I think, when I think hospital, I think hospitality, hospice in Latin, which means guest or host. I think of, Sheraton. I don't think of technology, so I have a different unconscious to it. Now we both have our own dream of what a hospital is. That's a dream in a way. It's this unconscious place. And so our work and our conversation and the things we do are going to be different because of our different dreams. Okay, this is one image I would like to present to you as kind of the center of all this conversation. It's an image that has been with me for many years. I just always go back to it to look at it. It's an ancient Greek image of Asclepios. And as far as I can tell, what's going on and what the experts tell us is that here is somebody who has come to the physician to be taken care of, has a problem with his shoulder or upper arm. And in the foreground, we see a physician working on the arm. In the background, we see the dream where the healing is taking place. It's an Asclepian image. It comes from an Asclepion, means a temple of Asclepios, where dreams were the means of healing. Dreams were the method by which you get healed. So here we have this, now here's the image I'd like to really, really get across to you if I can. That the dream is that close to life. See how close it is? It's not far away, it's right there. But it's still a separate reality. It's still there behind. There's something going on in the foreground, the healing going on, but the completion of the healing is in the realm of soul or in the realm of dream. And that's the thing about Asclepian healing. It was not just healing the body, it was healing the soul as well. At the same time. And that's what this image shows us. So there is dream very, very close, infinitely close. The distance between the life and the dream is immeasurable. And yet they are distinct and both going on. Now in our world, I think we tend to only look at the first part. We don't appreciate the second part. We've done so well at doing that kind of healing, the foreground healing, that we have forgotten the background healing. I asked the doctors last week in New Mexico, I said to them, can you imagine doing your work, going into the hospital room and having your patient have a record of their dreams right next to their medications and the other things going on? That you would look at their dreams as a way of getting to know the mystery of what's going on in this illness. It's so far removed, and yet this is what the Greeks did. And that, I think, tells us something about the relation between dream and life. Okay. So, people get married. Their dream of what marriage is may differ radically from one partner to the other, and their dreams may clash. It's not all on the surface. There's a dream going on there. There's a dream life. The spouse says, "Are you going to the office today?" He means, are you leaving me once again to enjoy your distance from me and the work you love? I don't love my work, but I sacrifice. So, Now, you don't find this meaning in the dictionary for office. Okay? You look up as many dictionaries as you want, you're not going to find the meaning of that person's statement. There's a whole dream world just beneath the surface of that statement. And unless we're aware of this dimensional life that we live, dream and life, then what have we got? We're deluded many times, much of the time. Okay, I've already said that. Thank you. So art is not essentially, I would say, here, I better prepare for this. So then the art is, I want to say that the art and dream are really so identical that it's hard to almost distinguish them. What the artist is doing is so close to the dream. That's why I didn't want to come here tonight and tell you how many artists have painted their dreams. I don't think that's enough to say. It doesn't say enough about how close art and dream are, how significant they are to each other. Because they're trying to accomplish something, maybe the same thing, to give us a soul. If we would lose our art, we've lost our soul. Imagine schools, how many schools in this country, in this world really, are cutting funding right now because of our economic situation to the arts, thinking we can do without the arts. We can't do without math. I would say, myself, the most important programs to keep are religion and art. Those are essential. We can live without the others for a while. I understand they're important, but they're not essential. Art and religion are essential. Religion, not the way it's understood in this world. I mean, religion, the way I'm talking to you tonight. Okay, so art is not essentially self-expression. I mean, if we're talking about art being the expression of the artist, I mean, how far removed is that from what we're discussing here? It's puny in comparison. Yes, it's something to consider, but it has nothing as important as the image itself. Or culture criticism. It's a doorway to the eternal mysteries, to the realm of the dream. So I said this to the trustees when we met here a while ago, that when you look at a painting, it seems to me what we're looking at a window into something, a particular window. We have an opportunity to go into the image, to go right through the image. The image is our way to that realm that's far beyond it. It's more a window than an object. It's not flat. It's an opening, like Alice in the Looking Glass. You go right through it. And Magritte showed this in many of his paintings. And finally, I might say here that just mentioning that James Joyce referred to a museum as a musi-room, meaning that's a place of muses. And the last thing I want to do here this evening for you is give you a quotation about Muse. And we'll do that in a minute. Thank you. So I don't see education and art as being terribly important. Forgive me for saying that. I don't think education in the art is as important as being led into the ritual of the dream of that art is. Education is a distraction. I go to museums, I hear what the docents are saying, it's too bad. They're not talking about the mystery. I say this all the time, but I'm going to tell you, my family and I, we were in the National Gallery in London, and my family, they're artists, they sketch. I can't do that, so I go looking, and I looked. The painting right behind where they were sketching was the Mars and Venus of Botticelli. I mean, this great, great painting of Botticelli. And there was a group of people coming in to hear someone talk about it with him. So I joined them to hear what was going to be said. To me, this is one of the greatest icons in the world because it's about the relationship between sex and violence, or war and love. It's a mystery, presents that mystery. And the person who was leading this group around only talked to them about the brushstrokes. I mean, here is this possibly the solution to world peace. If we contemplate it, and they talk about the brushstrokes. That's what I mean. There's a place for it, but it's a small place. Okay. Yeah, this is one thing that I would say in shorthand, that if you want to know more about your dreams, spend more time with art. And if you want to know more about art, pay close attention to your dreams. These two are echoes of each other. Now, here's one of the really great interpreters of Greek mythology in our time, Marcel Détienne, wonderful, wonderful scholar, full of imagination, equal to Magritte in every respect. And he tells us that in order to go into our depths, what we need is a deep form of memory, and that the poets and the artists give us this memory. Imagine looking at this painting of this image here on the wall here. Remember, that is not a child, okay, over there. But imagine looking at that and maybe being able to remember, because as you contemplate the image and have memory at least of childhood in general. And Détienne says that we need to have that kind of memory, which only the poets can give us. Only the artists can give us this kind of memory. So when you come into a museum like this, in a way what you're doing is looking at memory, not just your personal memory, but the memory of humanity, remembering what it's made of, who it is. And he says, I can't tell you how I happened to go in there. I was so sleepy that I lost track of the right path. That's what he says. That's how he got into this whole big thing. He got sleepy and he got lost. What a solution to this great issue that Dante presents, one of the most important pieces of literature ever. And he says, I got sleepy. Now, I should remind my family about this. When I get sleepy at night, this could be Dante. This could be his chance. He suddenly falls asleep and he finds himself, he's not in the right path now. See, he's not, and I have to tell you, if you really enter dream and art, you're not going to be right. You have to give that up. You have to give up the sense that I have the right interpretation of this dream. I know what this painting is all about. You have to give that up. That's what Dante is saying here, I think. You have to give it up. You can't have it. And so here, quickly, some rules of how to deal with dreams then, and art. Never feel you know the meaning of a piece of art. Give the images infinite time to reveal themselves. Infinite time. See the art as an image and not a concept or a puzzle to solve. Can you do that? It's not easy in this modern world. That painting, none of these paintings here, they're not puzzles to be solved. Okay. Treat art as precious image rather than entertainment or representation. Don't emphasize the rational, I already said that. All real art is sacred, insofar as it opens a window to mystery. By treating it that way, I mean, maybe we should find ways to give sacred context to our imagery, to our images, instead of making them so rational. Putting them up and putting them in places where it seems like the scholar should come and tell us what they mean. And that's the opposite direction of what I'm trying to suggest to you tonight. Become familiar with your dreams and work them into your life as a way to know art, and vice versa. Watch your language. Don't speak as though an artwork were a concept. Let art take you somewhere. Don't translate it into what you know. Talk endlessly about an art object, but never conclusively. Here's a still life, Cézanne. This too is a dream. It doesn't have to be a baby or a child. It could be a still life. There's an unconscious to a still life. That painting allows us to see things, objects, to see the dream of an object. How an object is dreaming. Now, there are two more things I want to show you, and then that's it. The first one is a passage from a poet called Hesiod, who wrote in the 8th century BC. He wrote a collection of poems called Theogony, which means the birth of the gods, or the coming to being of the gods. And in that description of the gods, he tells about the Muses. Now, I think Muses is a subject that we haven't dealt with nearly enough in our world. So I'd like to read to you, in regard to what we just talked about, what he says, 8th century BC, about the Muses, who, by the way, were the daughters of memory. The daughters of memory. Mnemosyne bore them, she's memory. They bring forgetfulness of sorrows. The Muses, what do? They bring forgetfulness of sorrows. Isn't that wonderful? This could be on your model for the museum here. The Muses, the arts, bring forgetfulness of sorrows. Wonderful. And rest from anxieties. She bore her 9 daughters, that is, Mnemosyne did, concordant of heart, and singing is all the thought that is in them. Another interesting line. Singing is all the thought that is in them. In other words, every thought they have is musical, every thought is poetic, every thought they have is dream. Every thought for the muse. And no care troubles their spirits. And then it goes on. There are their shining dancing places, their handsome houses, and the graces and desire live there beside them. So next to the Muses are grace and desire. Grace and desire. And festivity. Lovely is the voice that issues from their lips as they sing of all the laws and all the gracious customs of the immortals and glorify them with their sweet voices. Now here's something that, again, is, you find this in literature all over the world. The graces, the arts, do not depict humankind, they depict the immortals. The customs of the immortals. That's what art is about. And that's what dream is about, the immortals. Okay. You can see each one of these would be a week's lecture series. And now last, I wanted to quote James Hillman, been my friend and mentor for 35 years. And if you haven't read Hillman, you owe it to yourself to read him. He has a book on dream called The Dream and the Underworld. And before I quote him, though, I wanted to tell you that I was visiting him just a few weeks ago. He has cancer now, and he's not in good condition. But he's full of feist, as always, and we were talking about everything under the sun as he was lying in his bed. And he said to me, the thing that is most concerning me now, and he's just found out he has a tumor he didn't know he had. The thing most concerning me now is an image. He said, an image, treating an image as itself and not making it into something else. Really seeing an image. Really allowing an image to be. He said, that's what concerns me. This is a man who, in that condition. This is the most important thing to him. Here's what he says in his book on dreams. We must reverse our usual procedure of translating the dream into ego language and instead translate the ego into dream language. This means doing a dream work on the ego, making a metaphor of it, seeing through its reality. Isn't that what Magritte was doing? I'm sure. I have a commercial announcement in the next slide, so I want to hold that off a little bit. While we have this up here, though, maybe I should mention these things, and then we can have a discussion in case I forget them. This is my wife's, Hari Kirin's, new book, which is just out fresh and is here. It's Yoga and Art. And it's very much related to what we're talking about tonight, because she is connecting yoga and the experience of yoga to making art. That's what we're talking about. Very, very closely related to dream. Beautiful book, full of images, strong images, beautiful images. And this is my book, The Care of the Soul in Medicine, which is trying to bring some soul to the medical world and the medical practice. And what we're talking about here is not unrelated, because one of the things I do and did last week in New Mexico is to work with people who are bringing the arts into the hospitals. And down there in Albuquerque, I was amazed at the level that they're bringing the arts into the practice of medicine, right there to the center of it. All kinds of music and painting and dance and all kinds of visual arts. That is doing what I'm talking about, making life and dream that close to each other. So if you have any questions now, this is a time. I don't know if we have any time left. I feel like I'm holding you here for about 3 hours. Is that right?